Hey Ajay, how are you doing?
All good, yeah.
Can't see you.
Just one moment, yeah. Okay. Can you see me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Are you in one of the cafes or are you at home?
I'm at home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello, good. So I'm gonna get Namrata in. She's not here yet. Make her the admin.
Okay,
Cool. How are things going? Lots of action on your end, I can see.
Yeah. So, so just trying to create more and more action.
We have to meet up. I was there all of last week, but now I'm in the mountains.
Oh, okay, you're there. Okay.
Yeah.
Somehow I had the impression we are doing this face to face.
No. The FDC is entirely virtual. It's
Okay,
a 5 baj gaya, so I should start letting people in 1 minute.
Yeah.
But there's lots of people. We do it every Sunday, 5 to 6 in the month when we run FDC. So that's the plan. Yeah. We have a couple of published authors in here as well.
Okay, great.
And a couple of best-selling ones too. So, yeah. Two of the participants are actually at the retreat right now with me. Hi, everybody. Just gonna step out. Hey.
Hi.
I'm in the mountains, so I can show off a little bit.
I am speaking from Toronto.
Oh, nice. Must be middle of the night there right now.
No, it's early morning. It's about 7:30 in the morning.
Okay.
Just got back from my walk.
All right. Cool.
That's my hometown, born and raised in Toronto.
Oh, okay, that's good. We can exchange some notes.
All right. We'll give it a couple more minutes while people keep joining. And then we can start. Ajay is already here with us. So I'm trying to remember where we first met Ajay. Was it at Banjara or was it in Ladakh?
Oh, it was at Ladakh during the Hemis Marathon.
Okay. I know we met there, but I was wondering if that was the first time.
No, that's the first time we met.
Yep. That was a tough one.
I don't know how you guys did it. I could barely walk.
Yeah. Haven't tried anything that crazy since. Yeah. Cool. So we're at, hang on. There's people that are still joining in. Let's give it one more minute, then we'll start. So you're Delhi right now, huh, Ajay?
Yeah. So it's been raining here.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So we aren't so jealous right now as.
Yeah. It's a conflict between view and trees when you're in the mountains. The only way to keep the view is to cut the trees. So there's mountains right behind me, but the only way to see the mountains is to cut the tree. And I'm unwilling to cut the tree. So therefore you'll end up losing the view because you want to keep the tree. So
the view you can get from another angle or another vantage point also.
Well, beyond a point, it becomes hard because the trees will always be taller than you. So yeah, that's true. All right. So I was hoping Namrata would join, then she could let people in. All right, we'll do one more last round of letting people in and then we'll get started. Okay, here goes. All right, folks. So I'm thrilled to welcome Ajay to the July FDC. Ajay and I first met in 2008 in the month of July in Ladakh, which is, I think, appropriate because both of us love mountains. And I remember his first book was called Beep Beep Don't Sleep.
Beep,
So
don't-
Beep Beep Don't Sleep, because he based it off of road signs that you see in the mountains. So Beep Beep Don't Sleep is one of the road signs that you'll find, from Gref or BRO or one of those guys.
Sorry,
But-
I'll correct you there, Chetan. Sorry to interrupt. It's peep, beep, peep, peep, not beep, beep.
Beep Beep Don't Sleep. Okay,
Yeah,
there you go.
that was an actual road sign.
All right. And so Ajay is, is a very passionate guy. He's an author, photographer, traveler, and he has also founded Kunzum Cafe, which has morphed its avatar now completely over the last few months. He's authored 11 print books, over 50 ebooks, and he talks about travel, fiction, marketing, and personal development. The Kunzum Cafe started in New Delhi in the Horse Caste village in 2010. And it was famous because it had a pay what you like model. Then after the pandemic, Kunzum has been relaunched as a chain of 5 bookshops across Delhi NCR. They're very, very eclectic in their design. The focus is on happy experience browsing books, events, and also there's a special emphasis on community. And that's really separates it from many of the other stores. Guests, of course, still get coffee and they still have cookies, but it's really much more about the books than about anything else. So that's what is Ajay's current baby, and the amount of work he's done and the stuff that he's pulled off in the last 2-3 months is almost superhuman, because he's got 5 new shops, I think, which have opened, all or either have opened. Only the Horsecast one has been remodeled within like 3 months, right, Ajay?
Yeah, that's right.
So in 3 months, and these are not bookshops like hole in the wall bookshops. These are like 2,000 square foot places in big malls and really nicely, exquisitely designed. The one closest to my house is the MGF Mega Mall. That's Gurgaon. When I say my house, I'm talking about my Gurgaon place. So he's pulled off a lot. So we'll follow the traditional format for our conversation. I'll start with some questions, and after that we'll open it out to all the questions that you might have. But the first question I had was really about your writing journey. So from Peep Peep Don't Sleep to today, where you're published with so many books, and now now you're operating 5 bookstores across Delhi NCR. Tell us about that journey.
Yeah, so, but firstly, thank you for inviting me. And thank you everybody else who's logged in or might be seeing the recording later. So, yeah, so I think in a way, metaphorically for sure, and literally for many of us or most of us, we are always on a journey. And so for me, formally, I became like a kind of a guy who was like a traveler in 2007 when I got into travel writing. But before that, after doing my engineering and MBA, I've had careers in IT and sports management. And then at the ripe age of 31, I went back to school to do a master's in journalism in the UK. And then I came back to India, worked for the Express Group, started my own youth newspaper. Then I was writing blogs and columns on tech and business. And then in 2007, somewhere I felt, look, whatever I'm doing, I've been trained as a journalist, I've been trained as a writer and a photographer. I need to do something more which kind of leaves a legacy behind in my own way. So I thought, let me just explore the idea of being a travel writer with a focus primarily on promoting India, on writing about India, India that even I didn't know for myself. So I set out on a journey to discover my own country for myself. And my first trip actually took me to the Spiti, where I discovered this beautiful high altitude pass called Kunzumla. And that's where, so I came back and called my blog kunzum.com, and I've persisted with that same brand. And my motivation to be a travel writer while I was using travel columns for newspapers and magazines and my blog as a stepping stone, but I really wanted to get into writing books. And my initial role model was Bill Bryson, but I ended up writing books which are very different from Bill Bryson. And then because of my because I was also kind of a quasi entrepreneur, I was throughout whatever I've been doing, I've been into marketing and PR and stuff like that. So I started exploring other genres. I started writing books on personal development on marketing, branding, and recently I came out with my first work of fiction called Nikita, which is actually based on a true story.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So lots of different segues that you've had in your journey. So from being a writer and mainly being into writing and photography to this whole Kunzum and its current avatar, where you're more like a very important cog in the distribution network for books. So how did that transition happen then? How come moving from author to now this is much more of entrepreneurship, really, right? While still in the realm of writing and publishing.
So I think I don't know, without sounding stereotypical, I think entrepreneurship has been my kind of genes. It helps. I think being like a Jain Banya, I guess somewhere.
You're
Yeah,
talking to a
because-
Mahajan, so yes.
yeah. So I think even in school and college, I was doing something or the other. Having little ventures in college. I was running an event management company. I was making my pocket money, doing events and all. So I guess that so I've been a kind of an entrepreneur in a way in whatever I've done. And now setting up these bookstores. Actually, the Kunzum Travel Cafe initially for a year was actually, I called it the Kunzum Gallery, which was to showcase the books I've written and the photography I was doing. But I didn't make too much headway in terms of sales. So I added the coffee and the community component to it, hoping that when people come in, they have the coffee, they come for events, they'll see my books and my photography and purchase those. So that worked up to a point, but it got a lot of PR and a lot of brand building. And then the pandemic came, and like for everybody else, we also had to lock our doors on the business and also shut ourselves in. So for a long time, I kept thinking what to do, and I realized that I'm done with running ventures. Let me just focus on writing more books and focus on being more, increasing my readership. But how do you do that? So I thought, okay, let me create some kind of a larger than life book club kind of a thing, something like my own version of an Oprah book club. So I tried my hand at that, but then I realized I'll be doing too much of tech work, building communities on Facebook and WhatsApp and stuff like that. And I've been feeling the tech fatigue for a long time, even though we are talking on tech right now. But for me, tech, I limit myself to using it as a kind of a enabler to communicate, to connect, and really not much more than that. So when people tell me that whatever events you're doing, why don't you live stream them? Can you do Zoom? Can you Zoom them and all? I said nothing doing. You want to experience our events. You want to experience what we're doing. Come over to our stores and be a part of them. So yeah, so that club, that the whole idea of a larger than life club idea was kind of fatiguing me out right at the outset itself. Then I thought, okay, why don't we convert Kunzum Travel Cafe into like a kind of a chain of reading rooms? But then because like a library in the Kunzum Travel Cafe was quite a popular concept, and a lot of people used to sit there and read books and sometimes even borrow books. But then again, I couldn't find a model to kind of have multiple outlets because even a social activity has its overheads, right?
Yeah.
And then I don't know at what moment I thought, okay, I have an experience of building communities, of bringing people in to events and building a brand. So why don't we add a bookshop component to it? And this is when I thought I'll never hire more people in my life. I'll just be a lone ranger for the rest of my life.
Last words. Yeah.
Everybody around told me, Ajay, it's not possible. I said, no, this time nothing doing. I'm like, I'm done. And and then my problem is that, once an idea kind of takes seed in my head, I start running with it, and I think along the way. So I don't wait for it to, kind of germinate to a certain level. And then I realized that having one bookstore is not going to be fun. I should have like multiple bookstores, maybe have a chain of bookstores, because that'll give me leverage in terms of not only having a market footprint, but then because if there are multiple stores, I can invest in marketing resources. I can invest in I think like what's really driving the business is expanding the culture of reading in society. So
right.
While everybody goes for the existing market share, like, okay, there's 100 books are getting sold. Okay, you want to start percentage of that. But I think, and this is what I'm telling all publishers, all other booksellers, distributors, everybody in the publishing world, that our challenge is not who gets how much of the 100. Our challenge is to make the 100, 200, and 200, 400, because all of us above a certain age have grown up reading books because that's the only entertainment we need.
Hello, is everybody else with me?
Yeah.
So you can.
I think
Oh, he's back.
Sorry, are you guys with me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry about that. Something happened with the internet here. We're in the mountains, so it can be a little.
The question is not, are we with you? Are you with us?
Yeah. Okay. So my next question, sorry, I missed the last part, but I'm assuming the second question is done. So my next question was your experience with publishing yourself and with traditional publishers. So I don't know if you answered that in the previous question, but have you tried to approach them? How has that whole thing been? Because you've published so many books.
Yeah, so initially I thought I'll, when I wrote my first book and my second book, I thought I'll go to publishers and pitch to them. But somehow, one, I was poorly networked within the industry. Second, I couldn't get around to kind of making pitches and and going around to publishers and seeing whether they publish or not and stuff like that. Somehow, and because I've been doing some form of publishing or the other, not books, but like I've been publishing magazines and newspapers in my own way in the past. So I just thought, okay, let me try it myself. And I wrote the books. I got professional. So we put everything together. Chetan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, and then so because I'd done 1 or 2 books myself, and then I think my 3rd or 4th book I gave to a publisher finally, a good one. But when it came back after editing, it came back with more errors than what I intended. And I'm talking about one of the leading publishers, right? So I took back, I canceled my contract. And by then, because if you've done 2 or 3 books, then you realize that either you do all the books yourself or you give away all the books, because it doesn't make sense that you build a kind of a little enterprise with 3 books and the other and 4 books are with somebody else, because then you're getting the worst of all the worlds. And so I kept doing that, and to be honest, I've had mixed results with that. It requires a lot of hard work because at one level, what is common in today's day and age, whether you self-publish or whether you are going to a traditional publisher, authors have to invest a lot in marketing, in terms of effort and even in terms of money, possibly, right?
Yeah.
And even if you're getting published by a Penguin or a Harper US or UK or wherever, if authors don't proactively promote themselves, there's only so much the publisher can do, because publishers are, let's not forget, publishers are coming out with hundreds and thousands of new titles every year, plus they have the whole backlist also to promote. There's only so much attention they can give your book, right? And but what happens is that once you reach like the little tipping point of popularity amongst readers, then it just becomes easier. It's like you become a you become a star, and then people just go for your name and start buying your book whenever you come out with a new book. So so I've had mixed results, but and when I started this, I got into book selling as a venture. I thought I'll also build a strong publishing arm. Maybe not a publisher with which comes out with dozens or hundreds of titles. I just thought, besides my own books, just do maybe 8 or 10 or 15 books, but which are like kind of, but look at each of them as potential blockbusters. Go for top authors, go for stars, maybe go for Bollywood actors, go for people who have something significant to say, whether in the fiction space or the non-fiction space. And because that, by that, in that way, we'll also be building IP, and we'll also be maximizing profits, because if our stores keep expanding, the number of stores, we'll also have our own distribution. having said all this, I took a very conscious decision a few weeks back that I will not be continuing with publishing, either my own titles or with anybody else's. Because what I want to do is build the business of books retail at one level, and whatever time and bandwidth I have left over, I want to focus on writing my own books and then giving those books to traditional publishers. And even my backlist, I'm seeing if any publishers are interested, they can take it off me, so they can republish it under their imprint. And yeah, so that's where I'm coming from. And so in a nutshell, if somebody asks me self-publish or give it to traditional publishers, I would say give it to traditional publishers. Despite the supposed advantages of self-publishing, they do come with advantages. They take much longer for your book to see the light of the day. But I think if you are able to successfully build a brand for yourself, right, they will ensure that the books are in the stores and they are on whichever channels that books are selling, so people can pick them up. Because so that's what happened with me. I may have built a personal brand. I may have built a brand for Kunzum. People may have known I write books, but when they would walk into bookstores, my book would not be there. Because at the end of the day, you still need those physical salesmen to go shop to shop to ensure your books are stocked. And as an
Right.
independent publisher, you can't invest in those resources at a national level.
Right. And interesting. So, so in terms of this whole journey that you've had, so you've gone from, being a writer to being somebody who used to run a bookstore, to being somebody who used to run a travel cafe, to now being somebody who's running a chain of five bookstores of your own. And in many ways, when you think about traditional publishing, one of the big reasons to do traditional publishing is distribution. And you've made the space, and
Yep.
and I saw some of your previous interviews. So you're making a lot of space in giving opportunity to indie and self and vanity publishers. So what's the thinking
Yeah.
behind that? And how do you curate? I mean, how do you decide, what book to take? Because when you're dealing with indie publishers, then that, one of the reasons why people will go to traditional is because, Bahari Sons will blindly take anything that Penguin offers because it's Penguin. But if it's indie, then how do you decide what you will carry on your shelves? Because that's a competitive thing, right? The shelf space is something that books will fight for. So how do you take that decision? How do you think about that?
So, whether it's a traditional publisher or an indie publisher, I think the first criteria for selecting a book is its quality. It has to be a well-written, well-produced book, because at the end of the day, what I'm telling all publishers and I'm telling all authors, I said, look, keeping a book on my bookshelves is the easy part. Getting people to pick it up is a tough part. Right, and to get people to pick it up, it's not my job alone, right? I'm a channel, and see,
Yeah.
but it's the authors and the publishers who have to drive the demand for the titles, and then tell them, okay, you can pick it up at a Kunzum or so and so store or Amazon or wherever they're selling through, right? Because again, there is only okay, we've created unlike most other booksellers, we've created spaces where the way we've designed our stores, we've left a lot of openness. We've, the way the aisles are laid out, you can move around comfortably. We've kept stools everywhere, so you can sit down and, comfortably browse the books. The whole space lends itself to discovery, right? The way the books are displayed. And then
Right.
we've got in our stores, we have an events and a lounge area where you can sit, we can do events, we can do book launches, book talks, host book clubs, you can have a coffee. So we've done all that, right? But then we can't do everything. It's not possible for us. It's and we don't even have the incentive to do everything ourselves, because whatever we do, the benefit is actually going to all other booksellers in the city or in the country. Because if we do something, if we invest in any advertising, right, the title and the author are getting the publicity. Yeah, we'll get a part of the sales, but the awareness will be among society at large, and they'll pick it up through the most convenient channel to them. So coming back to the other part, we are actually reaching out to indie publishers and encouraging them that, hey, because I've interacted with indie publishers in the past. I've been an indie publisher. The biggest challenge for indie publishers is getting the shelf space. It's like if you look at FMCG, right? Between Unilever and Procter and Gamble and Colgate Palmolive and a couple of other big FMCG brands, right? They hog all the shelf space in all the grocery stores, right? But it's also a fact that if Unilever is not there in your store shelves will not be complete. So you need the Penguin and the Harpers and the Hachette's, right? But we are telling indie publishers, our doors are open. Come forward, use our space. Whatever you've been lacking in other sales channels, right? We'll give it to you. The problem is the indie publishers also have very small teams, right? And those small teams are also multitasking in many ways, right? So they actually don't even have the bandwidth to leverage the opportunities we are giving. So it's a little, catch-22 situation. But from our side, we are saying if your book is sellable and you're willing to make the effort to sell those, to help us sell those books or create a demand for those books, right? Talk to us because we are here to partner you.
Perfect. So that's actually my next question was, we are a group of writers who are all working on their texts, and a lot of people will hopefully publish within the next few months or a year or two. So the question is, for a new author, for an author who's just published, who's looking for visibility or distribution for their book, specifically in Delhi, what should they do? Can they approach you directly, or how do things work if they come to you directly, or what sort of support or events can they expect? So do you even talk to authors directly? Would you rather speak to their publishers? How does that whole thing work for Kunzum now?
So again, so I have a team which is dedicated to doing events and promotions, and whether the authors and publishers approach that team or they approach me directly, right? We'll make sure that we get them into the system and we follow a process and we give suggestions and options as to what all can be done, right?
Okay.
So we're totally open. So please step forward and and talk to us, and we'll do whatever we can, and we'll give you, because we'll share our learnings with you, what's working, what's not working, because every day we are also learning new things. Right. And likewise, many an author will also come with their own ideas, some fresh ideas, because they come with their own backgrounds and varied experiences. Right. It may not be maybe not necessarily selling a book directly, but I'm sure all of us, whatever we do in life, directly or indirectly, we are marketeers. Right. We could be like a research scientist sitting in a lab morning to night, right? But we are still marketing ourselves to somebody somewhere, right? So we all need to put on our marketing hats and see what we can do to generate sales for the books. But eventually, like with everything else, it all comes down to the quality of the book, right? I'm not that's why it's become so important. The role of editors and designers and even printers, right, has become so vital, because today, if you walk into a bookstore, right, almost every book that's on display, looks like a potential Booker or a Pulitzer winner, because the quality of production has gone up so much, right? And in fact, when I walk into any of my stores, I literally feel like saying, everybody go home, lock the door from inside, and just sit and read the books that are on display. So you're competing amongst the world's best, right? And that's the bar is so high, right? So you have to really, don't compare yourself to, if you're talking in the Indian context, don't compare yourself to other Indian authors. Compare yourself to the best that the world has to offer, because bookstores are stocking authors from across the world, and readers are more or less nationality agnostic. They will pick up a good book written by a Zambian or an American or an Indian.
Yeah, cool. Okay, well, I have one last question, and after that, I'm going to open the floor to all of the participants. So, folks, if you have questions, you can start putting them in the chat. But my last question was, what suggestion or advice? I mean, you already talked about marketing, but do you have any suggestions or advice for authors, especially for first timers?
Marketing
I was
advice,
asking, do you have any suggestions or advice for authors, especially for first-time authors? Do you have any,
Yeah.
from your learnings?
Okay. Are we talking about the writing bit or the marketing bit?
Let's talk about writing, because I think marketing, you already made your point quite clear. So let's talk about the writing.
Yeah. I think one is the one thing is, if you decide to be an author, take it very seriously. You may have a busy corporate job, you might be an entrepreneur, and you are and you may not be a full-time author. Perfectly fine, right? But you have to have a very professional approach to this, right? Because I know so many people, no disrespect to any of them, because they are friends and acquaintances, right? 10 years ago they were writing a book, and even now they're writing a book, right? And it's the same book, right? So there is no reason for anyone to take so long to write a book, right? So unless it's a very, very thoroughly researched book, but even the best of books get written in 7-8 years. And I'm talking about very, very well researched book where the author has taken the pains to, weigh every sentence 10 times, weigh, like look at every phrase and rephrase, right? But if you write in good, simple, engaging English, or whichever the language of your choice is, right, one need not get too fussed up about that part, right? But I think you should give yourself goals, and you should more or less stick to those goals and treat it like any other job, right? Writing can't be a hobby, right?
Okay.
You have to give it a very and the other very important thing is you have to kind of be honest about your shortcomings. You have to be open to critique. You have to be open to whatever shortcomings you have. Work on them. Where you can't improve, get professional help, but don't again, as Indians, a lot of us tend to say, oh, but it's I'm doing fine, I know everything, right? No, we don't. Even a Salman Rushdie or a Jeffrey Archer, they have got a whole team of people helping them out. So that we have to be very, we have to be very realistic, and we have to be very humble when we approach writing, right? Because at the end of the day, we have to come out with a good product, right?
Cool.
And yeah. So if it means going back to school, it means learning, it means attending sessions. There's a wealth of resources out there, right? Go through all of it, right? You don't even need to go to the formal classroom. There's so much learning possible today on the internet, right?
Cool.
Just like you would treat your job or your business and your the way you were at school, you have to treat writing as a professional activity, even if it's a part-time activity for you.
Cool. No, Lee has a bunch of questions, so I'll take the first two together. How do you determine how many copies of a new release you order from a publishing house, and what is your policy regarding shelf life? And last is, do you purchase the books outright, or do you sell them on a commission? So there's usually a returns policy. So how does that piece work?
So so we order, typically we order between 1 to 3, 4 copies. Sometimes, if we know they're going to move fast, we order even 20, 30, 40 copies per store. Like, it might be a new book, it might be like a Deepthi Naval book, or the flavor of the town today is Gitanjali Shri, right? So we always keep enough of a buffer, because although being in Delhi, one advantage is most leading publishers and distributors are in Delhi. So if we need books at a short notice, we can just have, we don't need to wait for them to send somebody with the books. We can actually send one of our office boys to just run across to their store, to their warehouse in Daryaganj or wherever it is, and pick up books. But that can be a little problematic if it becomes a regular thing. So yeah, we keep a bunch of copies depending on how fast they're likely to move. Number one. Number two, most publishers and distributors have a returns policy of only about 10 to 15% of stock we pick up from them, whether we are buying on credit or we are buying cash upfront. So we have to be a little careful what we order, because we are going to be retaining at least 85% of the stock no matter what. Right. And that's where sellability comes in. And when it's a new launch, the understanding is it's on a sale or return basis. So an author might be coming to us for a book launch or a book reading for a new book. And for that day, we might order 30 copies or 40 copies just in case there's a good audience turnout and they all want copies. But the understanding is, if you want, we can return all the unsold copies after the event.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, and
Cool.
and about whether we so with some publishers and distributors, we take books on credit, and usually the credit period is 90 days. But somewhere in some cases, we also, if you get a higher discount, we also say, okay, we'll pay you cash upfront, but give us a better discount.
Okay, cool. Now the next question is, what genre sells the most?
I think broadly in India, non-fiction sells well. Children's books sell significantly. Self-help sells a lot. But what we are trying to push is more of fiction, right? While we have everything, because okay, that's what people want. But from a promotions point of view, even when we have casual discussions with people, we're trying to tell everyone read more of fiction, because losing yourself in a world of stories, whether they are based on human beings or they're more, fantasy stuff like Harry Potter's and Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. I think all of us need to take ourselves a little less seriously, right? Read more of fiction, read more of absolutely wonderful stories. And as a writer, as a potential writer, I've always believed so, and I also read this recently. Reading fiction is actually more helpful to improving your language than reading non-fiction.
Okay, cool. Then I'm going to jump, KK, I'm going to jump your question, because we'll come back to that in the end. That's more about the business model. I was more into the writing, reading questions. Sailesh is asking, is there anything called networking with publishers or agents? And if so, are there any mediums or channels where one can engage continuously in the world of publishing?
I think all networking, when it comes to the business side of networking, I think it's, how do I put it? It's all very, purpose driven, right? There's no such thing as networking for the sake of networking. If you have something of value to offer, other people will network back with you. And likewise, if they have something of value to offer you, you will want to network with them. But yeah, it's always good to kind of stay in touch with publishers and the publishing world in general. And that's why, especially for aspiring authors, we encourage them to come and attend as many events as they can at Kunzum, because usually at all our book-related events, at least, we have people from the publishing world out there. If it's a Penguin book, somebody from Penguin might be there. So this is how you kind of just go up to them, talk to them, understand what's happening in the market, understand opportunities, ask them for introductions to commissioning editors and stuff like that. So like yesterday, we had an open house, and all the leading editors, including Karthika from Westland, were over. And it was an open house where you could talk to them, understand what writing entails, what publishing entails, how do you, you could ask any questions from the seed of an idea of a book to actually taking it to market. And we intend to hold, the Westland is keen to hold such open sessions on a regular basis. So if you follow us on any of our channels, you'll keep getting updates. So yeah, go ahead and network. It always helps. But I just repeat what I said. All networking, has to be purpose driven. Otherwise, in the professional world, it means nothing. And then people will just, kind of wean off.
Yeah. Prachi has a question: should first-time writers self-publish? If yes, why? If not, why? You've already kind of answered this.
Yeah.
So we'll jump to the next one. Would you stock books which have been self-published? So
I'll go back to the same thing, irrespective of who's published it. If it's a good quality book, it is sellable, and the authors are willing to make that effort to promote the books with us, we'll stock them.
Okay, cool. Shravya has a question: should writers connect with bookstores to ensure better shelf space, or is that decided by the store?
Well, it always helps to go to the bookstores and talk to them. But I can tell you with personal experience, because I went to bookstores trying to sell my books before I got into book retail myself. And I'm talking about for 15 years I was doing that. And it wasn't a very heartening experience, to be honest. Right? Some of them would keep the book, some of them would say come through a public distributor, because they don't have, they can't open so many accounts, like kind of generating bills from so many different entities. So then even if the books were coming through a distributor, the distributor would only send books to a Bhari Sons or a Midland or a Blossom bookstore only if, there was if you are able to create a demand for it. Right? And then you have to, and then I'm talking in the context of being a self-published author, right? And then there's a whole payment cycle. There are so many books that I still haven't been paid for, and it's just lost in the system, because sometimes a bookstore might keep 2 copies of your book, and they might even sell it, but they'll make you go back and forth so many times for the payment. And typically if all you have to do is after commission, you have to take 200 rupees or 250 rupees per book into 2, that's like 500 rupees. There's only so much of an effort you'll make for 500 rupees, right? So it's I'm not to discourage anyone here, but I can tell you one thing, dealing with bookstores is a disheartening experience, because it's basically most bookstores are very proprietor driven, and they're the ones who are also sitting and doing the billing. Also, they're also doing the events, promotions, admin, everything. Right? And for them, if they have good footfalls, they're selling books anyway. They're selling enough Jeffrey Archers and Gitanjali Shis and all. Right? Whether they sell your book or not, it really doesn't make too much of a difference to them.
So the next question is from Nolan. It's kind of related. So if footfalls, traffic in your store is asking for a new release title, do you order it for them? And how many times does this have to happen before you will decide to carry stock of that title?
Yeah, so again, there's no there's no formula to it, right?
Yeah.
Usually, so what happens is I've given a kind of standing instructions to my merchandising team, that say if a Chetan calls up and inquires about a certain book, and we know he's a keen reader, that means if he's talking about a particular book, it must be, let's assume it'll be a good book. Do a quick cursory research, and if you feel it's a good book, order it for all the stores. Chetan may or may not come back to pick up that book, but the fact that he spoke about that and we don't have that book, it's like automatically we are getting a recommendation from somebody who knows his or her books, right? And likewise for new titles, we try to get as many of the new titles into our store when they're out. But even if they're missing, if we get a sense that people are going to be asking for it, we automatically order them for all our stores and stock them.
So that's actually related to the next question now, saying as a bookstore, how many books do you read, or does your staff have to read? And how do you decide what to recommend? That's a tough one, right?
That's actually a tough one. So yeah, so I'm assuming that most of us read one, even if we are regular readers, I'm not talking about very, very avid readers, but kind of average readers. Depending on the size of the book, we'll probably take a week or 2 weeks to finish one book, right? If we read an hour and a half, 2 hours a day, hour and a half is usually, what most people can take out, right? So yeah, so there's only so many books we can read. But see, again, so I have a team that also comes from a books retail background, and they have a good sense of what moves, what doesn't move. And unfortunately, most of the staff in India are not readers themselves, right? It's like, you walk into a Starbucks or a Costa, the guy who's making a coffee, chances are he or she does not appreciate what an espresso is, right? So when you ask them to make a coffee in a certain way, they're looking at you like, why? Because they might not even be drinking Nescafe. And same thing that goes with books and there's so many industries in India, right, where the people who are doing the selling, like the guy, the car salesman, does not. There's a good chance he doesn't even drive a car, right? So for him to know that nuance as to why you want a car in a certain way, why that the cushion of the seat matters, because the guy is coming on a bike to his work or in a metro, right? So yeah, so I think so we go by but I also have a team of people who are not from the traditional books retail background, but they understand books. They're helping with the curation. We do a lot of like we've been busy mostly with the setup till now, but going forward, it's very important for us to go through book reviews and reading lists and recommendations from media across the world. And we are discovering a lot of titles which are not being imported into India yet. And now we've also started, getting that process on, because like all the Penguins and the Harpers, they've got so many imprints across the world. Probably nobody within a Penguin will be able to tell you how many imprints they have across the world, right? But when we discover a certain book written about in the Guardian, like I'll give you an example. There was a very good review of a book called The Sex Life of African Women. Now I realized it's not being sold in India. So I researched, and the imprint is called Dialogue Books, and that's an imprint of Little Brown. And Little Brown is a imprint of, I think, Harper or Hachette, right? So I've told my merchandising team, please contact Harper and tell them to import the dialogue catalog for us specially, right? So a lot of it is getting a sense of what's moving in the market, but then now we are kind of getting down to being very selective. But the other thing that we are doing is we are not treating ourselves as a bookstore that keeps books. We are treating ourselves as a bookstore that has a strong business section. So then we start curating a business list. We are a bookstore that focuses on a strong LGBTQ list. We are a bookstore which focuses on a strong gender list. So each list, then we kind of start deep diving and start looking for titles in that genre, and then try to build that, rather than just saying, okay, generally let's keep whole bunch of books. And that's why we are getting very positive feedback from people who are coming to our stores, because they're loving the curation, because we are treating each section as a bookstore in itself.
Okay, cool. The next question is, do you stock poetry, and does it sell reasonably well? That's a difficult question.
Actually, poetry is moving well. I was surprised myself. So, so personally, I don't, I'm also learning a lot about this, about what people want. And in fact, there's this huge tome by Penguin, this Penguin Book of Poetry or something, right? Which, and I think it comes out annually or something. And there was a copy of it in the GK2 store. And I've been looking at it. I said, who will pick up this huge tome, right? And yesterday in front of me, somebody picked it up, right? So in fact, I was just asking my team the other day. I said, look, we've got 20,000 titles in this store, right? Obviously, our intent is to sell all of them, which means that potentially somebody will come and pick up that 1 out of 20,000 titles in some obscure shelf somewhere and pick it up and take it home. Right? So it's an amazing dynamic, and every day, like it's exposure for me, and I'm just learning and getting fascinated more and more about how the world of books and works, and how readers think.
Right. Cool. So we have time for just a couple of quick questions. So I'll ask you to be brief. How long do you keep a book on the shelves if it's not selling? You sort of answered that, but 2 weeks, 5 weeks.
Yeah, there's like no. So, well, we usually get to we have at least 3 months to decide whether we want to return the book or not. But like I said, we are allowed to return only 10 to 15% of all books that we pick up. Okay. Like I said earlier, so we have to be very careful what we pick.
Okay. And the last question is, how is the translation scene in India, specifically for poetry or even otherwise, especially with Gitanjali now? Is that changing anything? But there's always been a scene, right? So with Malayalam and Bengali books and what have you.
Yeah, but I think this whole translation industry, or the translation segment, has got kind of fresh tailwinds, and that's the new buzz in town. That after Gitanjali Shri's win, or rather kind of honor of winning this Booker Prize, there's in the coming years is going to see a huge amount of activity in this space.
Right. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, we'll end the questions with that, and we'll move to talking about the tracker. But for those of you who don't know, we are running a translation masterclass with a gentleman called Amitava Sinha. He's the head of translations at Ashoka University, and he's done more than 70 books. So if you're interested, check it out. I'll share the link in the group afterwards. Should we spend 5 minutes and quickly look at the tracker, see how things have been going and how the writing is progressing? Today we are on day 17. And as I go through it, we are at 1,27,000 words. So that's a reasonable amount. We've seen better, we've seen worse. So we're somewhere in the middle. The people who are really moving forward, there's a lot of people who are in the above 5,000 category. Some are expected, some new names also, which is always great to see. Sachin, Sham. So lots of action from people who have, who seem to have caught up very quickly. Nupur was up there already. Neil was also well past the mark. So yeah, please do update the tracker. Keep your writing moving forward. That's what the First Draft Club is all about at the end of the day. Anyone want to chat about how the experience has been going? Anyone want to discuss how things are going for them, or have any suggestions? Sorry, I just saw the messages. Can you hear me now? Is this any better?
Yeah, maybe if you switch off your video for a bit.
I can try doing that. There. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better.
Before we go on, so how do you contact Ajay Jain? His email address is the easiest to remember. It's ajay@ajayjain.com. Correct, Ajay?
Okay, we lost you there again.
I was saying
That might-
ajay@ajayjain.com. Hello. Yeah, there you go. And Shravya saying she's not updated the tracker. Can you guys hear me or no? Not at all.
It's coming and going.
Oh, okay. Well, why don't you just go ahead? Is there anything that you'd like to share, talk about the writing in the last 1 week? I can hear you clearly. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, you're better now.
Yeah, I've connected back to the Wi-Fi. I was on the data card. So my question was, yeah, Lee is saying I've hit a bit of a stumble because your wife is visiting. You don't have to chat. You can speak. I could hear you guys. So, but I was asking more about the writing prompts. How's the writing prompts been going? And I know that you've all been contributing the prompts now, so it's on a life of its own. So how does it, how does that work, and how does it help you guys? Anyone want to pitch in for that?
Not related to writing prompts, but I actually used to think that it's very easy for me to write alone. But then after writing with a lot of people and after reading through their messages and understanding what exactly is everybody writing, I think this is a much better experience than writing alone, sitting in a room and not talking to anyone until you've finished your 55,000 words. So it's been very good for me. So
Awesome.
far.
I know you have a gun, you have a sword hanging on your head. So that's particularly good to hear. That's awesome.
I'm really enjoying the prompts. I know I don't respond to them because they tend to work their way into what I'm writing that day, to be honest. They've been very interesting, I found, and sort of inspiring. So while I don't reply to them in the group, they actually have been working their way into what I'm doing on a daily basis. So yeah, they're great. I'm really enjoying them.
Nice, very cool. So let me just talk a little bit about the next couple of weeks. Shravya, has Namrata been in touch with you?
No.
Okay, so we've had this conversation, and I saw it on the WhatsApp also, and we were thinking if we could have Shravya as our guest. So I mean, she's already here, but if you could have like a session with her. So next week we are going to have Kanishk Gupta. He's the founder and he runs Writer's Side. So he's probably India's leading literary agent right now. But the week after that, which is the 31st, Shravya, I was hoping that what we can do
Sure.
is combine a session with you with the closing, because that's the
Sure.
day we can also close out the FDC. So we can have a slightly extended session, maybe do about 45 minutes with you, and then take another half an hour and close out. So we can start at 5, get done by 6:15 if it's not a problem for people. And that way, I know that you've already have had a few bestsellers. You're working on your deadline for the next one, so it'll be interesting to have a conversation with you and learn from your experience as well. In fact, just so you all know, we had actually reached out to Shravya to be a guest on FDC, I think in April, was it? But you were busy.
Yes, around that time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you were caught up that time. So it's
Yeah.
it's great that you've actually joined up as a participant. So we'd still love to host you. So we'll set
Sure.
it up like that for the 31st.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks again, Ajay. Thanks for making the time and thanks for sharing this. And I have to see you in person, man. It's been too long. Considering we spend enough time around each other. So in the same city, that is at least. So we should catch up. Yeah, yeah.
But thanks for having me over. It was great having this interaction. And every interaction I learn something new. So yeah, thank you very much.
And I think that it's fantastic that you're doing this. I mean, I think it's just incredible because we really need stores. So all the best. And I'm hoping that Kunzum really rocks it.
Thank you so much.
So yes, all the best for that.
Thank you so much.
All right, folks, happy writing. Keep at it. We'll meet on next Sunday. Take care. Bye. I leave you with a view of the big mountains. That's the Himalayas right now. Can't see much, but that's how it is. All right. See you all. Bye.
Thank you.